Hey, welcome to this Critical Connection webinar from HTT. Thank you for hosting us here in Jasper, Alabama. We're in our studio here in Jasper, Alabama. I'm Brian Bowen with Fontaine Fifth Wheel. Been with Fontaine about 14 years. I'm the aftermarket sales manager. To my right is?
I'm Steve Wyatt. I'm a national account manager for Fontaine. I've been in the industry for 46 years and a proud member of the Fontaine family for 45. I live in and work out of Louisville, Kentucky.
46 years. That kills my 14. That's okay. To my left, Shane, 46?
Yeah, no, not quite.
Okay.
Shane Wolf. I'm the Director of Engineering for Fontaine Fifth Wheel. I've been in the heavy-duty trucking industry for only 26 years, so I'm just getting started based off of what Steve got here.
Awesome. And virtually, joining us virtually, Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Chris DeSantis with AIM Transportation Solutions. I've been with AIM for 37 years. Excuse me, also sit on the board of directors for the TMC.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you being here and being part of this webinar. We'll get back to you with a couple questions later. We're going to kind of jump into some of this. So we have 5 things we're going to go over today. How to choose the right fifth wheel for your truck's application, fifth wheel lock safety, what drivers should look for during a pre-trip inspection, explore maintenance routines, and then a live Q&A at the end. So again, if you have questions or you want to put Q&A in the chat, please put those in the chat now, or as it goes along, put those questions. We'll see those on the screen. And here at the end, when we're on the fifth wheels or on the wheels, we'll be able to answer those questions. So let's jump right into it, fellas. We're going to take a look at the screen behind me real quick, and let's discuss what's going on here. So this picture you see, this is the Louisville truck incident. First of all, no one was seriously injured during this event, and that's thanks to the Louisville first responders that rescued the driver from the cab of this as it hung off of the bridge. There are a lot of factors that made this rescue a success, specifically the fifth wheel. In fact, this was a Fontaine 6000 series fifth wheel on this truck. So during this scary event, what actually made it a success? So the first question is going to go to Shane. Shane, when speccing a fifth wheel, what details do you need to be considered to be optimal performance and safety for that spec?
Yeah, so when it's very important when you're ready to spec a fifth wheel on your trucks, to take several things into account. You can go to our application guide, and a lot of that has that information in here. You can look at the GCW, the gross combination weight of your tractor and trailer. When you couple those together, what the GCW is, that's in our application guide. And we test our fifth wheels based off of that. We want to be safe when we're on the road. And also look at your vertical load. You got vertical load of the fifth wheel. If you're on the higher end of those applications where you may have a heavy load on it, know what that vertical load is and not exceed that vertical load. And also there's the application that's actually going in. A lot of it can be on-road, or you've got some moderate duty applications that's got some off-road involved there, or it could be logging, mining, oil fields, those type of things, and applications are going to require really heavy duty application for your fifth wheel there.
Thank you, Shane. This question is going to be for Steve. When you're helping fleets spec a fifth wheel options, what do you tell them?
Well, the first thing we do is go in and do exactly what Shane just outlined, determine what kind of duty class they're in. After that, we get in and find out, do they want an air slide fifth wheel? Are they running a stationary mount? And what other options would they like to go along with that? Are they interested in the air actuated option, which allows the driver to uncouple from the trailer from inside the cab? Are they a candidate for a clean connect, a low loop top plate? Are they interested in our latest technology, which is a smart connect system, which gives an indicator light on the side of the fifth wheel to indicate if the wheel is open or closed, and it also has some predictive maintenance qualities to it that I'm sure Shane will get into later. And that's good if I'm sitting in the office. But what happens if you don't have a Fontaine fifth wheel representative with you? We have an application guide. This is available on our website and also our app. You young people like apps, and I'll let Brian talk about that in just a second. But once you get in with our application guide, as Shane explained a moment ago, you can go in here and pick out your duty classification. Say if you're going to go moderate duty, you can turn to the moderate duty section. You'll see which top plates are available, also which slide links or which slide assemblies or stationary mounts are available. And from that information, you can then go over to our product catalog and go in and select the correct model number. Brian, you can talk a little bit about our app, since you're a little bit younger and you're more in tune to the app world than I am.
Absolutely. So you can go to your app store on your Apple phone. You can go to your Google Play Store. Just type in Fontaine Fifth Wheel. You can download our app from there. You can do cross references, chat with us 5 days a week. You can look up your fifth wheel, spec a truck. You can do all kind of different things that Steve was talking about. Now we want to go to the fifth wheel itself. So let's do a full demo of the fifth wheel. Steve, we're going to bring in Steve again here, and Shane. They're going to show you about the trigger and how the lock works, and use a test kingpin to test the wheel out.
Every fifth wheel requires contact from the kingpin to engage the locking system. If you look at competitive products, you have one that has like a pincher lock and another has a swing lock. But what's different about theirs, the kingpin actually enters the throat and strikes the pieces that actually capture the kingpin. Well, if it comes in, captures it right here, that's fine. Everything works or it rotates around. But what happens if everything isn't perfect? What if that kingpin comes in a little bit high? What will happen, it presents an opportunity for the locking system, their locking system, to try to capture that lower shoulder of the kingpin. When that happens, that's when you get what is called a high hook or a false couple. The Fontaine system is a little different. And we have a safety feature designed into ours. The piece we call the bumper, which is actually the trigger that activates the locking system, is all the way in the bottom of the throat of the fifth wheel. What that means is the kingpin has to be fully inserted down into the throat of the wheel before it's going to strike the bumper and engage the lock. The jaw and wedge that capture the kingpin are actually above the bumper, so when it comes in, they capture the kingpin in the proper spot every time. So this reduces the opportunity for a high hook or a false couple. You bring the kingpin in high, hit the wheel, nothing happens. You back in with your trailer plate, contacts the fifth wheel top plate, kingpin enters the throat, engages the system, and again, it captures the kingpin in the proper spot every time. Another thing that's different with the Fontaine system that no one else offers is we have a no slack locking system. And the way we get there is when the wheel closes, the jaw comes in around the kingpin, then the wedge comes in behind it. The wedge is tapered, so it goes in just as far as the leftover space will allow. So what that means is if you drop one trailer and go to another one that has a little bit of wear on the kingpin, that wedge is going to feed in just a little bit further to compensate for that wear. If you have a system that has wear in it, it does two different things. Number one, it lets your kingpin sit down in the throat of the fifth wheel and kind of bounce around. If it's doing that, it can create premature wear. Second, your drivers. If that kingpin is in there bouncing around, every time he slows and goes, he's feeling that input, that push-pull effect. So with tighten down to zero, having no slack in there, it's a good comfort for the driver. Something else drivers like about our fifth wheel is when they have to release them. It's a straight pull. Pull the handle out, fifth wheel sets up in the open position. You don't have to pull the handle out and manipulate it in any way to stay open.
Thanks, Steve. Let's go a little deeper. We're going to ask a question to Shane. Shane, how do you know when it's time to change that jaw and wedge of that fifth wheel? How do you know when that fifth wheel jaw and wedge is worn out?
Well, like Steve was talking about, there's situations where the driver may feel slack in the fifth wheel, or you may just be bringing it in for the standard PM. You're wanting to check it, make sure your fifth wheel is okay. So first off, you need to check out your adjustment. So if a driver is complaining and will reclose it, if the driver is complaining of slack in the fifth wheel, you need to check your adjustment. On your adjustment rod, it is closed on a 2-inch kingpin. You need to have about a 1/4 inch of play up here. If you have no play, that means the end of that wedge is hitting that adjustment rod and not allowing it to take up slack like it's designed to. So check that first before you do anything. The other thing you can do from the top of the fifth wheel, if you do not have a kingpin in it, you'll see the jaw and the wedge from the top of the fifth wheel. Now you'll have grease in there. You'll have to clean it out some so you can get down to it. But this jaw and wedge will come across here. And what you can see in here, the serrations between the jaw and the wedge. You can take a screwdriver without a kingpin in here. You can reach down to here, separate it. You can see if you have any serrations or if those serrations are smooth. That's one thing that you can take a look at. The other thing you can take a look at, if we flip this fifth wheel over,
This is the movie magic. This is when the fun stuff happens.
flipping the fifth wheel over here and looking at the bottom. So if you have a fifth wheel that's got a worn lock and is trying to take up slack, there's only so far it can if it's worn out. So what we see here with this fifth wheel, we have a 2-inch kingpin engaged in the lock. The lock is completely closed. We see the gap between the operating handle and the cover plate, we call it here. There's plenty of gap there. This is on a new fifth wheel and a 2-inch kingpin. If you get under here and you're looking, this is worn out. This gap is going to get down to about 5/16 of an inch. If it gets there or lower, it's a good time and a good point to look at your lock, and it's probably a good time to change your locking components out there.
Huge thank you to Steve, for Shane, for going through the locking mechanism. So now that we have the right fifth wheel, we know how the lock functions. What about the drivers? Their safety is very important. We're going to go virtually to Chris. Chris, thanks for being on today. Tell us about your pre-trip inspection process. What are drivers you look for when it comes to the fifth wheel itself?
Thanks, Brian. First, the drivers, when they get to the vehicle, do a visual inspection for damage of the fifth wheel plate and that the fifth wheel is lightly lubricated and not over-greased. Then, after they hook up the unit, we expect them to get out and do a visual inspection to make sure that the vehicle is locked correctly around the kingpin. In doing so, they need to inspect the pull handle, make sure the position of the pull handle is within 1 inch of the fifth wheel head itself. And then after they ensure that is correct, then we need them to go underneath the unit with a small flashlight and just make sure the jaws are across the throat of the fifth wheel, as you guys just demonstrated. And finally, after we do all that, we need the driver to get back in the truck and do what they call a tug test. Release the trailer brake, release the tractor brakes, trailer brakes set, do a quick tug, make sure the vehicle is locked, and that we're ready to go for our trip.
All right, so we talked about the drivers. Chris, what about the techs? Tell us about what your techs are inspecting.
We PM our units every 140 days, so the technicians are looking at the fifth wheel every 140 days. Our techs are trained up on the website. There's great training on the website for our technicians, and they can also get the proper procedures for what they're doing, inspecting, and looking for on your website. What we're really looking for is the mounting bolts for tightness, checking the slider operation, make sure it works correctly, clean the grease from the fifth wheel head itself, and inspect for any damage or cracks. We use a test kingpin to make sure we check proper adjustment. Once it passes all that inspection and is adjusted properly, then they finally lubricate the fifth wheel assembly and make sure it's ready for its next trip.
All right, now when it comes to maintenance, we know that you have a choice, and customers and fleets have a choice on what to use. In the incident of the Louisville truck incident, that customer had a choice, that fleet had a choice, whether they had a worn out top plate, whether to go with a genuine OEM brand top plate or an off-branded top plate. That fleet chose a genuine Fontaine 6000 series top plate as his replacement, and it ended up in a situation like this. The question for Chris virtually: How do you make maintenance decisions on what parts when it comes to choosing the brand of those parts?
Well, when it comes to fifth wheels, as we're discussing today, we only want to use genuine Fontaine repair parts. So we make sure we're maintaining the integrity of the assembly. But it's not just about the fifth wheel for us. Other repairs within your fleet should also be considered to use genuine repair parts. A great parallel would be brakes. With brakes, whether we're using disc brakes or drum brakes, we only use the genuine OEM parts to ensure safety and proper operation of the vehicle and make sure it was designed as the engineers designed it coming out of the factory.
Appreciate your time today. Thanks for jumping on. Genuine Fontaine parts. That's what I do like to hear. In front of us is the actual wheel that was in the Louisville truck incident. This is the actual fifth wheel assembly we have here in our lab here in Alabama. It's been fully inspected. Shane, when you went to inspect this wheel there in Louisville, what did you see? What did you notice about this wheel?
Yeah, when we were going to inspect this, really didn't know what we're gonna find and see. But when we got there, we were really surprised. The fifth wheel we can see is completely flat. It looks like a fully functional operational fifth wheel. We threw a kingpin in, unlocked it, locked it several times. Everything was functioning just as normal without any issues with the fifth wheel. You could probably actually take this fifth wheel, put it on another truck. It seems like it's perfectly fine. The only thing we saw here was the bending up of the lower mount where the tractor weight was hanging off the bridge on this is really all we saw on this assembly.
And it's incredible that the fleet actually let us get a hold of the wheel, fully inspect the wheel, since it is a genuine Fontaine 6000 series. Top plate on a Fontaine lower mount. Steve Wyatt, you happen to live in Louisville. Tell us about
Yes, I
that
do.
day. Tell us about that day. Tell us about what you saw when you got to inspect it.
Well, as far as that day, I'm sure you'll understand that this accident dominated the news cycle. That day, all the news crews were there. All of the local programming was preemptive to follow this story and watch the rescue. For the next couple of weeks, every evening, there was a follow-up story. If you were out and about around town and having a conversation with someone, inevitably this story came up. And it didn't take me long to help reinforce something that I really already knew, that people outside of our industry have no idea of the responsibility of the fifth wheel. To them, it's just a big black greasy disc on the back of the truck. Fortunately, at Fontaine, we understand that responsibility and we take it very serious. We've been doing this for over 80 years, supplying fifth wheels to the North American market. I know Shane has a lot of pretty high-tech testing equipment that they use in the lab to put the product through the paces before we ever release a new design. And Shane, before I get too far out of my lane, you may want to jump in here and talk about what goes on in the test lab.
Absolutely. So before any of our fifth wheel assemblies go out to the field, or before they're ever put on the back of the truck, what we do is we take them here and we have several fixtures and test assemblies that we'll put these fifth wheels on. The main test is the static load test. And the static load test, we'll take the fifth wheel, we'll mount it down to the frame. We'll put a kingpin load straight up on the kingpin. When it's pulling straight up on the kingpin, you pull it, we pull it to the rating, of course, with no deformation. We also pull it to 2.5 times that rating, and it has to retain the kingpin and stay intact. And we're upwards of 140,000 pounds on that load when we're doing that for just a standard duty fifth wheel. We also have 3-axis test machines. We have a vertical, 4-aft, a lateral load. We're all cycling those loads. We'll put the fifth wheel assembly on there, and we'll cycle those loads for 1 million cycles, and we'll look for any fatigue cracks or any fatigue issues that we may have with some of our assemblies before we approve them. We also have lock cycle testing. We'll put these fifth wheels on lock cycle testers and test them 20, 40,000 lock cycles to make sure that all is good. Testing out springs. We have environmental chambers that we can put these in to test them down to low temperatures up to the higher temperatures. We put through a large gamut of tests to make sure that we feel comfortable with the products that we're shipping out there and sending to our customers.
And I'd like to add one more thing. For me, watching this live at home, knowing the company, I saw the name on the side of the truck, so I knew that it was a Fontaine fifth wheel. And to see our product playing just a small part in this life-saving event was really humbling. It made me feel good about our product. However, I will tell you, we don't recommend that you put our fifth wheel in this position. That's really not what it's designed for. It's more designed for pulling across the bridge, not hanging off the bridge.
It's a great call out, Steve. Again, yeah, just to be a small part of this was interesting. Having the wheel in front of us is also very critical. Question for Shane, question for Chris. Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years, especially in the fifth wheel space? Where do you see this industry going?
Well, what we're looking for, Brian, is safety and retention for our drivers is key. And coming out with new and innovative products like Smart Connects gives us the ability to use smarter technologies to help the driver and the company, and we can retain drivers in a safer environment.
Awesome. Well, we happen to have a Smart Connect fifth wheel right here that we're going to kind of review. Shane, we're going to go over sort of some of the features, some of the benefits, and there the green light is lit up there.
Yeah, this is something that we've designed as a driver aid to see that you do have a proper couple. As we're getting more and more into autonomous type driving, more sensor-driven technology. We're trying to incorporate that and working to incorporate that into the fifth wheel systems. This is one of those, the Smart Connect. The Smart Connect, what it's doing, it's sensing that the fifth wheel is completely locked so that you can feel confident about that. We're sensing off of the secondary lock. So we know if the secondary lock's latched, it is not coming open. And you'll get a green light. If it happened to not be latched, you get the red light. So you have the confidence of knowing that your fifth wheel is properly coupled. And this is available in the aftermarket now. We're working with OEMs to get it incorporated in the OEM data books as well. And of course, fifthwheel.com.
And some predictive maintenance also.
Yeah, the predictive maintenance. We're working on connecting this with the tractors and the tractor axle CAN connection. The CAN connection, we can go through here and we can actually predict when we need to maintain fifth wheels based off the position of our lock. As I was saying earlier, as your lock wears, the position of this operating arm gets further and further in. The design of this also incorporates a way to tell you that the fifth wheel is worn, and it'll give you indications. We have it set up where it'll give you flashing indications on the light as well to tell you that it's time to check your fifth wheel for a rebuild. And we have CAN communication as well they're working on with OEMs. They'll tie directly into the truck communication, and they'll give you lights and indicators that you need to check your fifth wheel for rebuild as well.
Thanks for the demo. This is a very exciting product for us, for Fontaine and industry alike. Now is the time for Q&A, live Q&A session. We do have 4 questions that have already come in, so thank you for that. If you want to put more in the chat, we will definitely take those. Chris will be here to help answer some of those too. Questions for Shane and for Steve, since you're in the room here. You said the word lightly grease. So please talk about lightly greasing the top plate and lightly greasing the jaw and the wedge, if you can. What did you mean by lightly grease?
Well, I'll start with that, and you can
Okay.
jump in too if you
All right.
want to. I mean, lightly greasing, so a lot of times we see in the field, if you're putting a lot of grease on the top plate, and you're constantly going under trailers, and you're wiping that grease off, that grease inevitably will fall down into the lock itself, and it will gunk up in the fifth wheel, and you have a lot of grease, grime, and buildup in there, and all that can interfere with how it closes. It can be a little more sluggish closing, so we want to make sure that we're not over greasing. We want to grease this lightly so that we have a good coat of grease, but not something that's going to create problems for you in the future.
Yeah, when I'm teaching my preventative maintenance classes, I always recommend that they apply grease with a paintbrush to the locking system. That way you're not getting a buildup and you're getting a nice, smooth, even coat across the locking system. A lot of people want to use just a spray lube. Well, a spray lube is going to last for a few days, maybe a week. A lot of these trucks aren't coming in for 30, 40, 50,000 miles between maintenance cycles. So putting the spray lube on there is really kind of useless. So I always recommend just a light coat of grease on the locking system. Again, spread it out with a paintbrush. And on the top plate itself, there's grease grooves in there. We see all kinds of different designs people use when they're lubricating the top surface of the plate. They may birthday cake it at one end and depend on the trailer plate to squeegee it across. What I always ask people to do is take the grease grooves and fill them up about a ½ inch higher than the top plate. The grease grooves run all the way around. Then take a piece of cardboard or a putty knife or something, and then smooth that out across the top plate. That way, you get a nice thin coat. You don't have to worry about 5 pounds of grease getting squeegeed off and onto your deck plate or onto the drive shaft and being thrown around the county. But believe me, I have to wash it off my pickup truck off the highway. So a light coat is definitely better than 5 pounds, as Shane said.
A light coat, thank you. We did have another question come in on the chat. This is about winter preventive maintenance. This is about winterizing your fifth wheel. You might want to jump in on that and take that question.
Sure, it kind of dovetails right in with the lubrication. You know, if you let a lot of old grease build up down in here, wintertime rolls around, the grease is old, it's got road salt, sand, and dirt, and all the other debris in there with it. It gets cold. Now it's turned to more of a paste than it is a lubricant. So in the fall of the year, we recommend that customers go in and clean all that old grease out. And again, just apply a apply a light coat of lubrication back on there. Anything?
We're sitting here talking about this, and I know it's difficult because a lot of guys out there saying, man, we don't bring our trucks in for, say, 5,000 miles. And we need to emphasize that this is a very important issue with cold weather, because at cold weather, if you get in cold weather conditions and you haven't cleaned out that fifth wheel, and if you do have extra grease in there, it leaves it open for issues and for it sluggishly closing and to have issues with it closing properly. So it is important that the drivers understand this, you guys understand this, that you do get in there, clean some of that out, get it cleaned out, put some lighter coats of grease on there so that you have a good functioning throughout the cold winter months.
Yeah, and you don't have to take the top plate off to do it. With the paintbrush, you can easily reach up underneath and you can hit the pivot points. On the top side, you can just close the fifth wheel. Again, ours only takes about 43 pounds of pressure to engage the lock. So you can hit the end of the bumper with a broom handle or a prop or anything and get the wheel to close. And when you do that, it exposes your jaw and wedge. So go in and put, again, light coated lubrication, and even take a screwdriver and break the jaw and wedge apart and put some lubrication between those two pieces. Because every time you open and close, that's metal on metal contact and we're working against each other. So with lubrication in there, you're going to extend the life of the product and it's going to make it operate a little bit smoother.
Awesome. Looks like we had another technical question coming about the straight pull handle and how do you keep the wheel from opening? If it's a straight pull, what keeps the wheel from opening? And I think we can do a little demo on this wheel here and maybe zoom in on some of the parts.
Sure, Shane, on that side.
Good question, good question. So what keeps that fifth wheel from opening if it's so easy to open when you pull the handle? So that's the mechanism we have in here called the secondary latch and the secondary lock. So if this tried to squirt open on its own, the latch is going to catch it. Now, if I wanted to open it, you pull it with a pull handle that rotates the latch out of the way so that you can open the fifth wheel. I want to open it because we have a key pin in it. But that's the operation of the secondary latch right there that keeps it from opening on its own.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Steve, for that. We had another question. It was about handouts and certificates after this. So I'm going to give you an email. parts@fifthwheel.com. It's parts@fifthwheel.com. parts@fifthwheel.com. If you have a store, a maintenance place, and you want a store pack from us, say, hey, I run a shop. I'd like a store pack from you. Hey, I'm a dealership. I'd like a store pack. Please email parts@fifthwheel.com with your address and then what kind of shop or dealer you are, and we'll send out something after this meeting. Didn't see any other questions popping over there. Maybe Allison can jump back there. Allison's behind the camera today. So she's making sure that we're all looking our best here, make sure the camera works, so we appreciate that. Didn't see any other questions come in. Chris, anything from you? Any final comments before I kind of let us get out of here?
No final comments. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Absolutely. We appreciate you coming on virtually. We appreciate what you do for Fontaine and being an ambassador of Fontaine on your end. And thank you to Shane. Thank you for Steve's 46 years at Fontaine. Thank you to the fleet for letting us see this wheel post inspection of the Louisville incident. And appreciate everyone being on here. Thank you so much from Fontaine Fifth Wheel.